Next up, we've got Ravi Pendse and Dr. Andrew Rosenberg. These leaders are going to speak to the importance of collaboration and leveraging our networks here at Michigan to make Michigan the leader in innovation, teaching, research, and patient care. So much is happening around campus right now. There's so much growth, so much change, and we are all a huge part of that. What if, on a daily basis, we thought about reaching across the lines to other departments on campus and tried to figure out who might be able to help us solve a problem? There are wicked problems on campus for us to solve, and there are so many opportunities for us to work together. My passion, I think everybody knows, is collaboration, so this speaks to my heartstrings for sure. Without further ado, I am going to introduce the Chief Information Officer and Vice President of Information Technology, Ravi Pendse.
Hear me okay? All right, well, how is everyone? Well, at the outset, I want to acknowledge Marcus and his wonderful remarks around people. Don't you think he did a great job? Let's give him another big hand. As I was sitting down, I was learning so much and thinking about how people can sometimes put each other in those cultural boxes that he talked about. So that reminded me of a story that occurred to me a long time ago. This was when I was living in Wichita, Kansas. We had a beautiful home in a cul-de-sac, and my son then was about five and a half years old, and he was out playing on the cul-de-sac. And I was inside the house. There were a lot of other neighbors mowing the lawn and so on. And spring break was coming, just very much like Thanksgiving now, holiday was coming. So my son is a conversationalist. He likes to visit lots of people, talk to lots of people. Not really sure where he gets that from, but he does do that. And so as he was talking to neighbors, some of them asked him, his name is Sachin, they said, Sachin, what are you going to do on the spring break? And so he started saying to them, he said, for example, this coming weekend, I'm going to go see my brother in Andover. That's what he said. Andover is a small town near Wichita. And then he continued, and he said, and then over the spring break, I have 3 sisters in Atlanta that I'm going to go visit. So the neighbor said, oh yeah, you have 3 sisters in Atlanta? He said, yeah, yes, I do. And then he said, and then over summer, I'm going to go to India, where I have 3 more sisters. And this is the conversation that was going on. I didn't realize that was happening. I came out. And some of my neighbors, they called me over. Some of these were some of my friends. They said, hey, Ravi, come over here. And I said, yeah, what is it? He said, how do you manage all this? And I said, what are you talking about? And they said, we heard that you have a son in Andover and 3 sisters. Your son has 3 kids in Atlanta. And I said, no, time out. And they said, what do you mean? And now they're thinking, okay, he's going to lie because children tell the truth, okay? What had happened was in India, and those of you from India may be able to relate to this, these were all cousins. In Atlanta, my wife's brother lives and his children. And in Indian culture, we don't actually call them cousins. It's considered disrespectful. So when he's in India, he has to call them as his sisters and brothers, and that's what we had taught him, not recognizing that it could be misconstrued among my American friends. So we, at age 5, we had to teach our son, saying now, when you talk to your American friends, remember, these are your cousins. And when you go back to India or you visit some of our Indian colleagues, these are your brothers and sisters. And that's what I had to learn very early on, because so if you're getting ideas, no, I only have one son. And I'm waiting for him because he arrives tomorrow. I have not seen him for several months from Atlanta, and so I'm looking forward to having him for a few days here as he continues his work on PhD at Georgia Tech. But it's really great to be with all of you, and such a privilege. And Marcus talked so well about the power of the Michigan network, about the power of the people. And I've actually experienced that power firsthand as I just about completed a little more than a year here now. If you remember, when I arrived here last August, I know a lot of people were taking bets on how long is he going to last, considering what had happened at my position previously. And there were a lot of, obviously, different approaches people take. The approach I was able to take is the approach of Acharya Deva Bhava, something my mother taught me when I was very, very little. To see a teacher in everyone I got a chance to interact with. And boy, were you amazing teachers all across the campus. Just incredible teachers, both in Michigan IT community and beyond. So I learned from each one of you. I learned from each one of you about the importance of people. You heard me say this. The acronym CIO does not stand for Chief Information Officer. It stands for Career is Over. And my career would have been over a long time ago had it not been for the power of the people. The power of the people that you come together and do things right. For example, I'm sure you can name exceptional people as we think about Thanksgiving in our lives, both personal and business. For example, I know if I asked you to name somebody that you consider quite important, that important connections that Marcus was talking about, I'm sure you'll be able to name many. For example, oftentimes when I visit unit IT groups, I was just with the computer science faculty members, that's my home department, and having conversations with them, or other academic departments. Plan this year is to visit as many academic departments as possible to connect with people and expand that people network. One name that keeps coming up, Colleen Mccormick. Notice I'm getting a lot of nods. Because people talk about Colleen. People talk about how wonderful she is to work with. And I'm sure each one of you can name some interesting people in your own organizations. So I urge you, as Thanksgiving is coming, take time to write them a note and tell them how grateful you are for them, for being them. I intend to do that to Colleen. She already knows this. I've said that many times to her, but she's special. And I could go on. We just experienced an interesting challenge over the weekend where we had a significant incident. And we had tremendous amount of people giving up their weekend, passionate, on the call for hours, trying to figure out what was wrong and how to restore the services as quickly as possible, putting our users in the middle of what was happening. That was the power of the network and the Michigan IT network as we talk about. Now, obviously, for the whole year that I have been, I've learned a lot along the way from all of you wonderful teachers, and it's been great. It's been terrific. I learned from Vijay, since he was showing off his data. Vijay is fantastic when it comes to IQ and the power of data that his team uses. And he reminded me that apparently, according to data, I am now the second longest serving CIO here. Go figure. Thank you, Vijay, for reminding me of that. But one of the other things I learned about is our alumni and fans. Incredible alumni, incredible fans as I travel around the world. For example, about a few months ago, I was in Kyrgyzstan. It's a country in South Central Asia. I had gone there at the invitation of the leadership of the country, and the president of the country, who does not have any connection to the University of Michigan, greeted me with "Go Blue." And I was surprised, actually, because he does not speak English, so he has to have translators with him. And what I found out was that one of the rectors of one of his top institutions, his one son has graduated from Michigan, and second son is currently enrolled at Michigan. I'm looking forward to meeting that. Rector is like vice chancellor. I'm looking forward to meeting him here when he comes for his son's graduation in May of this coming next year. He's graduating his second son. Recently, I was in India, and interestingly, on an airplane, I met this person, and I knew he was somebody famous because everybody who was walking in the airplane was greeting and wanting to take selfies with him. Now, I had no idea who he was. I really didn't know. And then, as he turned around, he saw I was wearing a Michigan shirt. And he said, "Get out of here. Are you from Michigan?" I said, "Yeah, I am." He said, "Do you work there?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Did you go to school there?" I said, "No, I was not smart enough for them to admit me." So he said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Did you go there?" He said, "No, I didn't go there." And I said, "Well, how do you know so much about Michigan?" He said, "I love Michigan." And he started rattling off football statistics and basketball statistics. And I was like, he said, "I have never missed a game." This person has never gone to Michigan. And he has never missed a game. He watches every game on TV in India at the middle of the night. And he was rattling off every kind of statistics you can think of. I was just amazed. Later, it turns out, I did find out who he was because later he took a picture with me, and then I sent the picture to my niece who lives in India, and I said, "Do you know who this guy is?" Because I thought it was rude to ask him, "Who are you?" I mean, I know I'm ignorant about arts and artists, but I didn't know who this was. I mean, I had no idea. And so my niece knew. He apparently is one of the very, very famous video jockeys and hosts the India's equivalent of MTV. And apparently very, very popular among millennials and Gen Zs and so on. And just incredibly popular person, and currently is actually representative for NBA, National Basketball Association, as is trying to make move into India. Those of you from India and want to know, was curious, his name is Ran Vijay. And if you are curious, I have a picture with him. I'll share with you later, okay? But great thing is just incredible alumni fans all over the world, and the passion for Michigan is unbelievable. We were in Bangalore with President Schlissel, and about 240 alumni came from all over the country, flew into Bangalore to be there. And I have to tell you, I was so appreciative of President Schlissel. He was so patient. Every one of them wanted to take a picture with President Schlissel. And no, they didn't want group pictures. They wanted individual pictures. And those pictures were flooding the tweets all over the place because it was Michigan's president. Then, of course, service. You know, we talked about service. I already mentioned to you how amazing you are when you're thinking about service. We obviously have still work to do in that area, and we can do that collaboratively using the power of the Michigan IT network. We have a lot to do in this area. We're doing great, but we need to be thinking about always our users, because sometimes we have a habit of rolling out services, thinking, oh, this is going to be cool, but we really need to think in terms of how do our users feel, do a lot of testing, get a lot of feedback. And I know a lot of you are thinking about that and partnering with us. Let me know how I can assist you in that journey. Learn about lots of interesting ways how decisions are made at Michigan during this 1 year. I learned that sometimes some people will not talk to you unless you give them your short code. I had to ask Diane. I said, Diane, do I have a short code? And Diane said, why do you need that? I said, I don't know. I said, so these days if somebody asks me short code, I just tell them Diane. That's what I tell them. I figured, I said, Diane knows all the people. She has the power of that network. By the way, if you see Diane, I know she was going to be here today. I don't know if she's here in the room or not. Is Diane, are you here? Okay, she's way back there. Now, be sure to congratulate her. Do you know she was awarded as a Women of the Year in IT award? She just recently won that. She doesn't like to tell that. For the incredible work that she has done with Coding Academy and just enhancing the diversity and all types of leadership initiatives that you. So what a great representative we have that she has won this award. So be sure to tell Diane how much we appreciate her if you see her. She didn't know I was going to mention this. Hopefully I'm not in trouble with Diane. People did ask me what made me move to Ann Arbor, Michigan. They said, it can be the weather. I said, no, it was the weather. I just misunderstood. I thought Ann Arbor was in California. That's what I told them. No, actually, weather is fine. I mean, you know, we love the 4 seasons. I know it gets cold now and then, but, you know, I love it. We love the idea here and how people are actually genuinely helpful. I've seen sometimes when people pull over, a car is pulled over, people stop and ask if somebody needs help, which is really special, and people are just incredibly nice. And then, of course, the research. The amazing research that goes on here in the area of research computing and beyond, just incredible work happens here. And I know we have more work to do in that area. We have to think in terms of what your users want. We must be listening to our users. What are they exactly saying? Are we rolling out the services that they actually need? Or what's happening? And there, all of us are responsible for this, meaning if something is not working, and I know in Midwest we want to be nice and kind to each other, you need to speak up. You need to let us know. That way we can work together to ensure that people, our faculty colleagues, our staff colleagues, our graduate students, undergraduate students are getting the service that they deserve. We've been talking a lot about data and storage, and we'll have a chance to talk a little bit more about it. I'm being conscious of time here, since I know all of you want to hear from someone more interesting than I am, the real doctor who can help someone. This is another story there where one time my son on our cul-de-sac, when one of the kids had gotten hurt, and people had said, Dr. Pendse, Joey is hurt, help him. My son quickly volunteered saying, my dad is a kind of doctor who cannot help anyone. That's what... Andrew is kind of the doctor who can actually help someone. So, and then, of course, the innovation, the power of the innovation. I mean, it's a humbling experience to walk across, pick any building randomly on this campus and run into people who are just so brilliant and so bright and so willing to share and teach and give. And so it has been a transformational experience for me myself as we have thought about innovation. And what can I say about people? I already talked about Colleen, I talked about Diane. Kathy Curley had been a phenomenal teacher in providing advice and guidance. Chris Eagle, many of you know him, he has been wonderful. Dr. Rosenberg himself, while he was in the interim role, while my name was being announced, was incredibly kind and generous with his time and advice and guidance. And so many of you wanting to help and support and leveraging that power of the people network. And so it has been an exciting 1 year, and I hope to be here next year. I used to be on a month-to-month plan last year. I've shifted that to a year-to-year plan now. No, actually, we love it here. It's been incredible. And, we're having some really interesting work going on in data. Marcus talked a lot about how sometimes people make data decisions on the basis of putting people in boxes and categories and groups. That's not who we are about. That's why I like to talk in terms of data-informed decision-making, not data-driven decision-making. Data-informed decision-making, I like to submit, keeps people in the loop. Human ingenuity is critical to us, and it's important to us, and no data or no artificial intelligence is ever going to replace human ingenuity from my humble point of view. And of course, you've heard about innovation, the Detroit Center for Innovation. We have a great opportunity to work with the leadership to provide assistance and support, and IT will have such an important role to play in this journey. And so I know it took a little more time than I was supposed to, but without further ado, I would love to introduce my friend, mentor, and an amazing leader on this campus, Dr. Andrew Rosenberg. Give him a big hand.
Thank you. Ravi and I speak a lot. I tend to focus on Michigan medicine, the health system, and the medical school. But inevitably, our conversations almost always devolve into really speaking about the University of Michigan. And Ravi embodies much of now, I think, what we've been looking for and hoping for in helping us look across the entire University of Michigan. And I've mentioned this once or twice here before. When I go places or people say, "Where do you work?" almost always I say the University of Michigan, or I'll say Michigan. I tend to focus on that broad university side, and I hope you feel that way too. And so what I thought I would do in the very few minutes that I have to talk at this meeting is to talk a little bit from the perspective of Michigan medicine, the health system, and the medical school, but really it's simply an example of the University of Michigan. And one thing that I love about the theme for this IT symposium, sparking connections and igniting these ideas. I hope it's something that you all feel, because at the end of the day, my point about working at the University of Michigan, and I'll show you a few examples, I am constantly going beyond my typical daily area of work, and I think much more broadly around the University of Michigan. Michigan IT, the U of M IT Symposium, Hack with Friends, the communities of practice, the mentorship programs. If you don't know about these things, I strongly encourage you to participate, because this is one reason why we're at Michigan, not in our own particular areas. You saw that several of the diagrams that Marcus showed, I hadn't seen this before, but you saw that network of networks, the networks of people, the connectedness about what we do, not who we are in our demographics, but these are themes that I hope that you see and that we deal with all the time. And so I wanted to point out that while we have our strategies at Michigan Medicine, those for our clinical enterprise and those for our academic enterprise, I would argue they're not very different at all than those in any of your particular areas of work. But again, I wanted to dive into just a little bit more about what's going on at Michigan Medicine, because I think, one, there's some extremely exciting things going on. Also, I think there are enormous numbers of opportunities for everyone. If you've not looked at the posters yet, you'll see this diversity of thought, and we represent that. You probably, when you think of the health system, think of something like this. You think of the hospitals, you think of North Campus Research Center, you think of those things that are most closely, physically, visually, most focused and centered on us. But also, we have some new opportunities with this almost $1 billion new tower. In and of itself, it's not only part of the clinical growth and a representation of the excellence of the health system, but these are opportunities for technology and information services, data, how we produce new products, whether they're in taking care of patients or their families or new discoveries, but also from a technology point of view, how we do things truly differently. This is an example of a place where we can do more automation, more self-delivery, more connectedness to that broader network that you saw Marcus talk about. And I'll show you an example of how that might happen. I'm going to use the strategic growth of the health system as an example, but in all places, what I'm really talking about is how do we use services and technology around education? How do we use new ways of coding? How do we do this in a more secure manner? How do we collect, collate, store the amount of data we're going to be having? How do we do it not just only here among ourselves, but with our partners? All of that connectedness. That's really what's the goal here. So when you think of the health system, many of you may think about those blue dots there. Those are the hospitals and ambulatory sites in the Southeast Michigan corridor. Increasingly, though, this is where we do our work. These are areas, these are hospitals and health systems that we have strategic partnerships with, service partnerships with. We help take care of patients in every county of the state of Michigan, including the Upper Peninsula. A couple years ago, we purchased a health system, Metro Health, in the western side, and those systems, those hospitals, those ambulatory care sites, those physician offices, and all that connectedness is part of this broadening ecosystem that you can see. We also have a very, very strong connection with Mid-Michigan, a large health system in the center of the city. If you've not been up there, they carry the Block M. They're extraordinarily proud to be part of this connectedness that we've been talking about. You might not see the 2 or 3 stars that just showed up there, but we also have deep partnerships now with one of the largest health systems in the country, Trinity Health. And even more recently, in green there, we've now also partnered with the Sparrow Health System, where we'll be doing more clinical care and health plan work as well. So you can start to see what's happening here. The sites that you're aware of here on campus, those sites that are in the Southeast Michigan, they're just part of an enormous network. And in order to do that work together, we need to be able to exchange information. These are examples of our variety of health information exchange mechanisms, both what we do with those systems and what we use other partners to do that, just as one example, these kinds of systems. So you can even see, having never seen Marcus's presentation, these networks that we're part of, that you're part of, are an incredibly important part of why we work here. You in your particular area, and the partners that you can have. And so I would only end with this. When Ravi and I meet and we talk, particularly around Michigan medicine, really, we're talking about the University of Michigan. And the University of Michigan is not just this thing here in Ann Arbor or in Southeast Michigan. The University of Michigan is not just everything I just showed you in the state of Michigan. Increasingly, we have partnerships like many of you around the entire world. These happen to be just some of the research efforts going on within the medical school, but these are no different than many of the other schools that make up what's great about the University of Michigan. So there is nothing remotely true about the area where just you work, or where you work with a few colleagues, or a few colleagues that are part of the university here in Ann Arbor, or Ann Arbor as part of Southeast Michigan, or Ann Arbor in Southeast Michigan as part of the state of Michigan. We really are a global brand. We are a global community. We are a global ecosystem. And our efforts are, in fact, a connectedness that's globally. And if you think that way, the area that you work right now and the projects that you're working on really are part of a much, much larger ecosystem. And I hope that's a source of great excitement and great opportunities for all of us. So thank you.
It's always great to hear from Andrew, and like I indicated to you before, he had been a terrific a mentor and advisor, and we continue to meet regularly and actually learn from each other. So continuing our conversation where we left off, I have talked about a few other things that we wanted to think about. In large audiences, I have often asked the question, what is it that, if you think back 5, 10 years, what's one thing in our world that has changed and that's different than what you used to? And often one of the questions that comes up is the idea of mobile phones and mobile technology. This was no different recently in India as well. The penetration of mobile devices in India, it just has been incredible. And the ways people are leveraging those mobile devices for doing things has been amazing too. And so one of the questions I ask is, if an organization, if a unit, Michigan IT, if they really want to leverage the power of the network, one of the questions we have to ask is, do we have a mobile-first strategy? I have been encouraging within ITS and across Michigan IT to think about mobile-first strategy, to think in terms of how we can make resources available where we can leverage the power of mobile devices that are literally in pockets of everyone across campus and beyond. Just this afternoon, I was meeting with a faculty colleague from psychology who is doing some really interesting work in mindfulness. And when Marcus talked about the power of the network, what we were talking about came to, it was even more enlightening as I thought about it. This particular professor is working on mindfulness, and what he does is, each day, he tells his students, as he's teaching the class, he texts his student to express gratefulness and thankfulness to somebody among their network. That's what he tells these students to do. And then as they do that, that data is collected back from students, and if a same name keeps showing up on multiple networks, that particular person seems like is that connector, that big node that Marcus was showing in that picture. That's a person that is spreading happiness more than the others. And what students are reporting is, as they're taking this class, they're reporting that their own behavior is changing, where their families are saying, you seem to be saying thank you a lot. And you seem to be saying, being grateful, expressing gratefulness. So it's kind of spreading. So it was interesting to see. And this faculty colleague is wanting to, of course, needs help in terms of developing an app where he can do this more rapidly. And that's why the connection with thinking about the mobile-first strategy. And I believe that we have to think in terms of a mobile-first strategy, but also focus on people, because it's not about device. Do we have the right people? I know we have the right people. The question is, can we provide the right people the right kind of training if they need training resources so that they're better able to help the bigger Michigan IT community? So the focus always is and has to be on our people. They're our most prized asset, generally speaking. And then, of course, I talked briefly about AI. Artificial intelligence is taking hold. Well, what is artificial intelligence? Automation, beginning baby step, and then you turn that automation into a little bit of more adaptive automation. So automation is becoming a little smarter, and maybe you give it a little bit more thought process, so it gets a little bit more smarter, and it keeps getting smarter and smarter, and there you start reaching into areas of artificial intelligence. I'm sure many of you use those robots in your homes that can vacuum your entire house. Once you turn it on, it knows how to navigate, it vacuums. Once in a while, it might get stuck if it climbs the base of a fan or something, but generally speaking, it works well. If you had to provide a little bit more additional wisdom to it, imagine you added an entry on your calendar that says that somebody's coming to home for dinner, and the robot is able to see that entry and decides to clean your home by itself. Now, that's getting a little bit more smarter, maybe creepier, depending on how you look at it, okay? And so that's where privacy has to be thought about. But the point I'm trying to make is, generally speaking, any organization today cannot bury their head in sand and say, we don't do AI. We have to be thinking in terms of how can AI be used to enhance what we do, not to replace us, but to enhance what we do, how to augment our amazing individuals and people. I was at Dr. Rebecca Cunningham this morning, and we were talking about different packages and so on, and one of the issues was around conflict of interest forms that all of our researchers have to fill out, and have to fill out a little differently, and verification that people have filled it out correctly. Notice how I'm describing that. So how does one verify that somebody has filled it out correctly? Okay? Currently, the process tends to be manual. All of you here understand technology. Think about it. If the form is designed properly, it would not be too difficult to check that people have filled it out correctly. Even if it has descriptions and so on, if we can feed the right keywords, and an automated system can figure this out very, very easily. This is to augment our people, to assist our people, because if all of a sudden thousands of conflict forms, interest forms are coming, we want to be able to check. And of course, some exceptions have to be looked upon by people, not to replace people, but to enhance and augment the human ingenuity. But as an organization, we have to think in terms of what's our AI strategy? And we've been doing that thinking across in ITS and working with many of you who have been partnering as we move around. Already commented on security, and the privacy stuff is just there because Saul Berman will be happier. I'm kidding. Saul Berman and Jack Kufal, as I like to say, they worked well together, great partners in crime, so to speak. And privacy is extremely important and personal in my case. I would like to see us take privacy extremely seriously, as all of us already do. We have some wonderful students on this campus. Some of the students have some significant profile, and their privacy has to be respected. Absolutely has to be respected. And I know all of you do, and sometimes some of our colleagues have slipped up, and that's just not acceptable. Privacy of our individual data is absolutely important to me, and I know it's important to all of you. And I want to assure you that we will do everything from our side, partnering with Andrew and others, to ensure that the privacy of data that we keep is always respected and maintained. We want to be able to disrupt ourselves. It's okay to disrupt ourselves. We should have that mindset, because the way the technology is evolving, you've heard me say this before, there is no job security. There is absolutely no job security. If you're thinking job security, we are in the wrong field. But there will always be career security. Your career is always going to be secure as long as you continue to evolve. I continue to evolve. If I become static, and if I don't continue to evolve, if I disregard what you're providing advice, if I don't see a teacher in each one of you, chances are I'm going to be obsolete. My career will be over. You might be looking for the 6th CIO, okay? So that's why we have to. So there is no job security, but our career is always secure as long as we continue to learn from each other and are willing to disrupt ourselves. So the question is, are you prepared to disrupt yourself? What part of job do you do today that you feel you can disrupt? You need to ask that question yourself while you're with each other. And if you have ideas on how we can disrupt ourselves, please share them with me. I would love to hear from each one of you, because so many brilliant individuals in this room, so many ideas. And so the question is, I know sometimes it's a hard question to ask, but there are technologies out there, because the thing is, it's better that we disrupt ourselves or be disrupted. Be disrupted. So be thinking about that. And, diversity and inclusion, very, very critical, not fashionable, not because we want to check a box, but really, and you've heard me say this in one of the meetings maybe, if you take a look at your hand, you have 5 fingers. Think about your 5 fingers. These 5 fingers are dissimilar. They're not identical at all. They're not identical at all. A lesson my mother taught me when I was 7 years old. Not identical. If they were the same size, if you want to pick up a spoon or a fork, you wouldn't be able to do that if they were the same size. So it would be very difficult to pick it up. In India, when I was little, we typically eat by our hand. And I was challenging my mother that I could eat by my hand even if my fingers were the same size. So she actually took rubber bands, sticks, attached them to my fingers and said, try it. Had my sister sit next to me. My sister was eating, I was eating. And guess what? My sister was finished, and I had maybe 2 bites. But I was still insisting that I could eat. I was one of those stubborn kids back then. And not a day goes by when I think about all the interesting things she has taught me along the way. But the point is the power of diversity. Diverse fingers, yet they have to come together to get things done. And that's the power of this room. That's the power of each one of you. That's the power of the fact that we come from different places, different countries, different cities, different upbringing, different ideas to the table. Not all of us are engineers, and thank God we are not, okay? We wouldn't want that situation. We come from many, many different backgrounds. Many different backgrounds. She's smiling there when I said, thank God we're not all engineers. Sorry. And so I'm an engineer, by the way, just in case you are curious. And so point is, working together is when magic happens. When diverse individuals come together, they bring a variety of different ideas to the table, and leveraging those ideas, that magic happens. I always insist that maybe the best ideas are yet to be spoken because maybe the person who can speak best ideas maybe is not at the table. So how do you ensure that diverse ideas people have power to speak diverse ideas and people have power at the table to speak those ideas? How can we together create a culture? I want you to know that I would love to hear from each one of you. If you have ideas, I'm all ears. I'm happy to come and see you. You can have my cell phone number. Most of you do already. Text me. I'll come over, because together, using the power of the entire Michigan IT is how we are going to enhance our community, and we'll continue to do that. And with that, I appreciate your time, and I'll hand it back to Michael. Thank you.